So, hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Entreprenathlete podcast, where we talk to people who have turned their sporting passion into their living and into their business. And today we have Denise Austin, a former World Tour beach volleyball player. She coaches her daughter, who is currently playing on the World Tour for beach volleyball as well for Great Britain. And she has written a guidebook, the guidebook to being a beach volleyball player. She also runs beach volleyball training camps and vacations through beachvolleyballinc.com. And she's currently writing another book. And we're going to hear her story and hopefully learn a ton from her. So I'm really looking forward to it. Denise, thank you so much for talking with me. I can't wait. I feel like you've been a trailblazer for where I'm heading and everything that I see you do. I'm like, she did it, I can do it. And hopefully the people who watch this and listen to this, hopefully they feel the same way and they can get a lot out of it. So hello.
Hi, Mark. Thanks ever so much. I'm, as we discussed before, just a year conversation just been put on hold. And what a year. So developing businesses and, living with the reality of where our businesses are at, right, is a crucial time. And I think, especially for younger people like yourself who are developing their coaching camps, their coaching business, looking at how they can utilize what's going on, in getting your message across through the internet, which is, as we are now, it's such a powerful tool. And I wish I'd just been a videographer a lot sooner. And I'm just so impressed with what you guys do constantly. I share it with all my adult beginner groups. I share it all the time. Just like, check this out. This, I think it makes me laugh, some of the things you say and you've come up with, and the very similar things that I've come up with in the time of watching and helping, like that whole spectrum of learners. You get so many kind of quirky ways of doing it, but yeah, very similar. So I love it very much. Really well done. Brilliant.
Well, thank you. And thanks for sharing all that. And thanks for always being involved in our Facebook group. I know we both have a pretty substantial Facebook groups, and that's a big part of where our community has developed. But before we move into Facebook groups and how to communicate with your people, is there anything else that you're doing or have done with your sport in terms of creating a business, aside from running your beach volleyball vacations and training camps and in your book and your beach volleyball guidebook? Have you done any other sort of things, or are you currently involved in any other projects?
I'm the head coach of Austin Evans, who are part of the Commonwealth Games qualifying process. And we've got a big event at the end of May that we're aiming for. And so Anaya and Ellie are both studying in America. One's at Grand Canyon University, one's at Florida Atlantic. So that's a massive part. Then also my retirement, place. We ended up finding ourselves a piece of land in lockdown, building a beach volleyball court, and just basically holding out, really, being a bit of a land girl. It feels enjoying that aspect of a life, as a forced sabbatical. So that was really very important, and definitely like the Austrians do every 7 years, they do sabbaticals for teachers, and I think I wish I'd had one sooner, kind of thing. And doing a kind of a whole network of stuff, really. And playing myself, actually surfing and playing myself, getting myself fitter, so I can go into a longevity of being an athlete. Some of the comments we've had about playing until I'm 90. So I kind of figured that I got a bit slack, when you coach too much or you work too hard. So that's been another bonus of this time. So yeah.
That's awesome. Still playing, still coaching, still running multiple businesses or parts of the business. And there are a couple of different ones that we can sort of get into, because some people here might just only be wanting to write a book, and some people might be interested in running the vacations and training camps. So hopefully we can touch on both. And we talked before the show, and you said that your path was kind of similar to mine in terms of coaching, where I started coaching sports when I was 13, just at summer camps and at a tennis club where I was running the little itty bitty courts. So technically your business training, since you're involved in mostly coaching and instruction, technically that started, you said, when you were 16. And when did when did you start making money outside of playing from your sport? And I want to ask, when did you officially start beachvolleyballinc.com?
So 2000 was when I first set about. After I failed to get to Sydney, we came 25th. So it's a big failure, like a really hard, every kid's dream suddenly not there. So you've got to, okay, what am I going to do now, kind of thing. And it always, we wanted to start a family, and so at the same time I started my business. So in the very first year, I earned enough, like £800, and was a mum, and it was the best kind of year of my life, and I had a lot of time and shared an amazing journey, and it's the most valuable thing you'll ever do. So it was a great time to start because I could put as much or as little or as much as I wanted to in it. And I think that's also one of the big things about being self-employed, is that you should still be able to dictate your terms. Although we get busier, things get put aside. The whole point is that we can do the thing we love and be with our friends that we love and our family that we love while we're doing the job that we love too. So for me, like everyone, it's such a cliche, but if you work in the things you love, you never work again.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's absolutely true. So if you could just wrap that up in a nutshell to anybody wanting to, whatever you love doing, just find a way to share that passion with someone, because it's infectious, and then they love sharing that with you, and that time spent with somebody that's enthusiastic and knowledgeable and and patient too, and all those things that make you connected with the people that you're trying to teach them the thing that they've kind of got a little bit of an inkling that they'd like to do, or they might want to take this up, or they might want to spend more time doing the activity that you provide. It's if you love it, then there's a good chance other people will.
I would agree with that. I say on a regular basis, for myself, I'll walk out to a beach or on one of our vacations, and I'll just say to myself, man, people love volleyball. And it gives me like confidence and a little joy in the future to keep going when it gets tough. But so what did your business look like the first year? What did you decide that you were going to do? So we just, you came off the Olympic cycle, just barely missed Sydney, and now you're thinking, all right, I'm going to start a business. I'm going to make a serious living for myself, I suppose. And what did the business look like that first year?
I don't think I really envisaged what the bigger picture was. I don't think there was anything out there that really could model what I've become since the last 21 years. I guess Facebook was just beginning. So, and I set up my website because I wanted to share all the beaches. So, I was like, right now, if you go to this country, go to this beach. If you go to this country, go to this beach, and then Google took over, and I don't need to keep that going. And then, I would just be trying to add something fresh to the people at the time that they needed to know about the sport that was missing, because they hadn't had the chances that I'd had to learn about where to go or what to learn about, or just what to do when you got there and how to get integrated into the beach volleyball environment where you were heading, really. And
so was it more than a blog?
God, there was so much there was so much that you wanted to get across.
Was it more of than a blog that you think that you were writing, where you were just sharing information with people before it was camps and training camps? Is that what you're saying?
I guess I did, but I also did coaching camps for people that lived in the UK. So I would set up a weekend and say, right, this is for A level, this is AA, AAA. I can't remember. I think that was the system that we were working under, very similar to the California, the open system in the States.
Mm-hmm.
And I sort of did that to start with, but then I struggled with people coming together that had a conception of what level they were at, because I noticed that you sometimes struggle with the better level, and you're bringing people in, and people were like, oh, well, I'm better than her and I train with her and I've done it, and I was just like, wow, I'm not sure if this is kind of where I thought my coaching was going. So then I started advertising for people to book a group, and they would come with a group of friends. So after setting up these camps on levels where people would sign themselves up, then I then I sort of thought, well, I'm just going to do small groups. People can come, they can be all friends, they know each other. They're not going to have like a diva. I kind of have a prima donna diva kind of approach to their own ability. And, I'm not going to have to manage that part of it, because for me, it was really about getting the information that I had about the sport in the beginning across. And that was more important. I think I've got better at managing those kind of divas to include them, but also what I call the negative divas are really like the really anxious learners too, that go sorry all the time, and then the others are getting frustrated. So you manage both ends of the spectrum, and I talk about the lifeboat, and so I kind of do a lot of it's weird how it's developed into kind of life coaching as well over the time to an extent, which is, people always say that to me, but I just think as long as we're effective and trustworthy and we're honest and we nurture everybody, and I value, like unconditional positive regard of the people that come to you. Yeah. So those are sort of things that I send to people before they come on camps, like everyone's worked really hard. They're giving up their vacation time, they're here. This is the week they've got off. They want to have a good time. They don't want to feel all the toxic crap that you might want to bring if you feel and play a certain way. So there's a whole big sweep of emotional stuff.
Yeah. So you're running small groups. You started running, and then you said that the levels became too much to deal with. People's attitudes and visions of their own skill level became too much to deal with. Now, were these local, or did you start right away by having people travel to another beach, another country? So when you asked them to bring their small groups, did you say, hey, okay, and you're coming to Spain, you're coming to Portugal, or was this in your hometown?
It was more domestic, sort of regional and national camps, people coming. There weren't as many beach volleyball clubs then as there are now, so you could quite easily target the 5 venues where people might be playing and might be a little bit more hardcore, so they were more likely to be your core clients year round. They weren't just your summer players that weren't really bothered. These guys are seriously into it, so they were wearing their wetsuit socks, playing on Christmas Day, brushing the snow back, so there was a lot of opportunity in with those guys. If you became a hardcore coach alongside them, you were always positive, always like, yeah, it's not going to be cancelled, we're going on regardless of the weather, just make sure you bring lots of clothing, that kind of thing. So that adaptability was really important in the beginning, and I think as a player as well, those are things that are very important to teach, but we can come on to that later.
Were you then choosing a destination and then saying, hey, I'm going to be coaching here, bring your group? Or did you just start negotiating and talking with people? So how did they find you? How did they set up with you? What was your marketing plan during that time when you first started?
I guess in the beginning it was, I'm really lucky. I live in a really beautiful small village called Croyd in North Devon, and it was in the volleyball magazine as one of the best places to go to play beach volleyball in the UK when there was a feature writer traveling through the UK. And so from that perspective, it's like, living in Hermosa, you don't have to go very far. You just literally, people want to come to you. So I was really blessed and lucky. And
so you were in the beach volleyball mecca of Great Britain.
One of them for sure. Yeah.
Okay.
So that was an easy sell. So I didn't have to work too hard on that aspect of why would people want to come here, or why not? There's everything to love and nothing not to, kind of thing.
And 2001, the internet was barely going. Your MapQuest, you could print out directions to wherever you're going. But how are you finding these groups? And is that different from how you're finding them today?
I think it was very much about my stature as a player and the fact that I traveled, and then I just sort of, when I go to tournaments, I tell people, so it's quite organic in the fact that you are meeting people, chatting. I think, I remember buying, when you get your first mobile phone and you dial locally and you don't know, you've got to put the 01271 in front of your 8906. I remember going through that whole process of having the first mobile, getting your first your website, and it was a very different process. And I think if I could talk to my younger self over that, I definitely wish I'd found the right business partner at that very inset, the beginning. because I think a dynamic person that was had a real passion for growing an internet business or wanted, but that's kind of all. I think everybody has a wish list for that, because we all learn how to do the technological side of things, but ultimately I love the coaching side of things, but making more of a passion about how you use, write your book, put videos out there, take photographs that inspire, all of those things they do. So effective working partnerships is also important. And if I would definitely say, can you do it on your own? Is it going to be as much fun on your own, or is it better to have other people that you can really trust and feel like, you know what, right now it'd be a great thing if we did this together, and wouldn't it be great in 30 years time we're sitting around chewing the fat over how far we've come?
Doesn't it feel good to share that with somebody? Like I'm sharing mine with Brandon, my business partner for Better at Beach, and it feels, like I've always thought, man, it would be cool to walk to the top of a mountain and be up there all alone, but you don't get to have a beer with anyone at the top and say, look what we did. You're alone up there, and is that going to be the same reward? Like, it's not. When you build with somebody, when you spend time with somebody in a team, there's something cool about doing it together. And I think a lot of people really start out alone, and then you get that pride of, I can do it, I can do it, I can do it. And there's a couple of things that I love when I know that I'm coaching at that moment, or I'm working on something at that moment. I love knowing that other people are also working on building towards like this dream that we have of reaching as many players and helping out players and becoming a resource for them. There's something so special about having that team and finding another person who's just as passionate. And I know that a lot of other entrepreneurs end up finding those partners. And what's weird is when you start, those people find you. How many people come and like ask to help your business, or say, hey, have you thought about this? Hey, I build websites and I could build yours super easy. Don't even worry about it. Like, I've had so many of those characters along the way that just because you started, they want to help you. More people have wanted to help me. I don't know if you feel the same way, but more people have wanted to help me since I started creating a business than I ever thought possible. And definitely more than people who like want me to fail. Did you find that you had that similar experience where once you said, hey, I've got this business, hey, I'm running training camp, did people reach out and start helping you and like boosting you along the way?
I would say the biggest boost was always the coaches and the young players. And for me, when I first started, especially as developing sort of elite players, and you've got a niche knowledge, so getting them to a really high level, getting them to the good high level of coaching, so that they were passionate coaches themselves, that was probably the biggest give and take that happened in the onset of my business. I think the internet and the ability to reach out and everything that you're explaining, I would say is, if I could have my younger self, I wish I could capitalize more on that, but it wasn't like that. I think let's rewind. When I first started, I had just really, you just went to your national governing body and then you said, right, I want to get involved in beach volleyball. What do I do? So I joined the coaching commission. I wrote the book, learned how to qualify coaches. I then said, well, we need a performance pathway. What are we going to do? So then we looked at setting up the first national junior training camps, bringing in coaches to coach there. And then you then you get involved in the domestic playing competitions and how best to get more people playing, and what does that look like. So in the beginning, I was quite spread thinly, but involved in the how not so much in the refereeing, but the coaching, the performance, the general participation.
You were trying to build your sport nationally as this business was like getting started, just the seedlings. It sounds like you were concentrated on like, how do we grow this sport? And I feel like some people, maybe now it's like pickleball and beach tennis and other kind of fringe sports like frisbee or disc golf. People are wondering, how do we get more players playing? And then your business can grow even stronger. But it's also like, well, you know, I don't necessarily want customers. I just want more people to enjoy this game because it's so awesome. And so you were doing that at the same time. You didn't have and Great Britain still, it's not a massively popular sport in Great Britain. Beach volleyball is not. And you were still saying like, yeah, I can run this. This can support my lifestyle, and I'm going to grow it nationally. So you're like almost growing your customer base for now. Would you say that that's accurate? And doesn't that seem scary to jump into it and know like I have to create a national sentiment just to make sure that this plan works?
I don't, like I say, I think you have such actually, when I was reading your questions, it came to a sense of I was a true believer in myself. So wherever my energies were needed and whatever needed to be done at the time, I was sort of more than confident that it would be like the volleyball bank would be full because I'm filling it, you know. So when my time of need, when I, you know, and it just grew very organically, but as I needed it to. As my children got older, so I had more time. I then got a job with Volleyball England as community development coach. So that gave me money to then help develop more spectrum of the whole program regionally and link the dots together and help support those pathways. You know, it was ahead of the Olympics, so we had a lot of there was an infrastructure being developed around the Olympics, and what happened to the sand and the legacy of that sand post 2012, where that sand went, the new facilities being built, you know, trying to get coaches working in those facilities, you know. So from 2000, if you sort of think where I retired through to seeing the Olympics in London, and now, you know, where we are now, although we've never had the performance arm of the sport at the level we want, we've got 4 girls actually from the British program in NCAA programs. We've got a 5th starting next year, which is exciting. So in that respect, that's been really cool, out a kind of a byproduct of all that hard work. And yeah, I guess we're talking about business and how you start. You can't do it all yourself. I guess that was the biggest thing for me, is that you have to grow the support, the manpower, the everything, and that's it's a you can't be selfish about what you're going to get back from it, because it's like sowing seeds and trying to kind of keep hold of all the plants. You just can't. They're going to grow. So, you know, like let it. So, you know, what's been wonderful to see is, you know, I remember Mark Kontopoulos and Jake Sheaf in 2000 came to a place called.
Jake stayed right where we are right now. He stayed in our home and stayed with us for a few weeks. Great guy.
Yeah, well, he was 10 when he first came on a national training camp, because his mum and dad both played. And so we put out this invite to all the clubs that had been sent by letter. And we just got a few clubs back saying, oh, we've got a few kids that we can send. They're national team players. And then the boys was like, not so, there was hardly any response, really. So we had Mark Kontopoulos, who runs another successful volleyball business, indoor and beach stuff. And he must have been about 16 or 17, I would say. But Jake was 10 and his brother Luke was 12, and they joined in with like loads of other girls on this national training, you know. And then when you see where they've gone and how they've got involved in the sport, and, you know, I think what we've done really well is we've now we've got lots more clubs, the domestic, like local, like participation level, and people paying for coaching. There's more successful businesses coaching beach volleyball in the UK than there are in Poland, you know, where there's hundreds of thousands of people playing.
Yeah, and that is volleyball central. Most people don't know that Poland has got one of the strongest indoor leagues. It's got an incredible beach teams.
So yeah, there's more there. So if I could speak Polish, we had a Polish guy, Marcin. I don't know if you've met him. I can't think of his second name right now. I'm terrible, but
probably got too many consonants. Bunch of P's next to Z's and C's next to T's.
Yeah, definitely. But he set up his coaching camp business, and he came as an assistant for a week or two on one of my coaching camps. So I get a lot of junior players wanting to come and play because they know there's other good players coaching. And so we get kind of lots of players coming to coach, and you're supporting their development as a player because they get to train when they're not coaching. So you must have that similar sort of thing where you're supporting, good players coming through and they want to work, and, so they get a chance to be at the beach, and they can, in their downtime, they get to play, and they can also train with some of the better trainers too. So that they get to support your drill, so that we do a lot of working side by side with people on smaller groups, helping them play with better players. So we bring in a semi-pro, and, they get to play with somebody at a higher level, and they know what that giving and receiving is like as well. So
100% what we do with our camps. But we focus a lot on bringing people who can play, so pro players or people who are like right at the cusp, or people who are in the AVP and World Tour. And then we say, okay, but can they coach? So we get very specific with some of the volleyball vacations and training camps. They end up bringing pro players to like look cool, and they share the game, and they do a great job of doing that. But our focus for our training camps is on the training. It's not just coming to play. If you're coming to us, that's the name of the brand, right? Better at Beach. So if you're coming here to get better, so we have a very unique type of person that needs to work our camps, because they need to be able to run drills efficiently with like sometimes varying levels on a court. They can't have a short temper. They can't have short patience. So they need a lot of people skills, and they have to have that mindset of, yes, I'm going to coach very well during this camp. And those are the type of players and coaches that we bring. And we've brought a few coaches who are not players, but we feel like you get 2 for 1. You get to hang out with a pro. They get to show you the game. And then there's kind of this built-in authority that we have when we have those player coaches, because it's like, oh man, okay, you've won a continental championship. Okay, you were the newcomer of the year in the NVL, and finishing and winning all of your local open tournaments. So it becomes important for us to make sure that we have teachers. But if I could go back to
I concur. I 100% agree. That it's not those that can't teach, it's those that can in our sport, I think. And we love it, and it facilitates the other side of our lives as we transition. And I think this is a big thing: the transition from player to working coach, or part-time player, part-time coach, to full-time is definitely part of the process that you have to. And one of my mentors, she said, make sure you future-proof yourself, succession plan. So whether it's success as an athlete into success as a semi-pro and then a pro, and then into semi-pro coaching, all of that succession planning, you can't, whatever it is that you do, you must think about it as soon as somebody even now, that those people that have never thought about it, you've heard me say it, you might hear you say it now. That's it. Now you can't let go of that, because you've been warned, on notes,
Well, how do you, I had another question, but that brings up something like really cool. How are you future proofing your business right now? So with your camps and along the way, how did you future proof it? How did you plan for the next step? Because I think some people hear that and they say, all right, one of the best pieces of advice that I got was from somebody who, family friend, built my first website. And he's like, don't worry, dude, your family, I just want to see you succeed. He goes, when you start making money, he goes, then I'll start asking you to pay me, but you're whatever right now. And he said, when you're busy and when your business is succeeding, you have to be thinking about what happens when that well runs dry, because otherwise you're going to have this long dry period. And he goes, you have to have somebody in place that if you're coaching and you're coaching 8 hours a day and that's going great for you, who is booking your next camp? Because you're taking off from that role. So we had to learn that we needed somebody still answering emails and talking to the people who were interested in the next week at the same time that we were working. That was the first time I hired an assistant/manager. But how do you future-proof yourself?
I think I did really well up until March 2020, 20, then it was kind of like, However, I think the fact that we found ourselves having moved out of the UK into a motorhome, homeschooling on the road in Europe, looking for a piece of land was serendipitous in the fact that, okay, we're going to go to Portugal and we're going to buy a field and we're going to figure out what we're going to do with it, So that in itself, I was future proofing it, but it just accelerated it. So even though it kind of like it's peaks and massive troughs in terms of financial income, the reality of what we've achieved here with having so much time to put into it, physically, manpower, moving earth, digging vegetables, building, chicken sheds, from the skip, all of that kind of thing we wouldn't have had if we hadn't have been there. So in itself, it was a future proofing. I just wouldn't have kind of seen it like it ended up. But I think my future planning has always been about teaching others to keep the sport going, because at the end of the day, you just want people to remember you as somebody that got a lot of people into the sport, and you got a lot of people excited by the idea of teaching other people. So what you said about, we very much, we might get quiet athletes that come and they become consistent trainers, and we know that they're never going to stand on the side and run the drill, but they can really keep a drill going amazingly, and they'll make everybody happy because they never thought they could do that thing on a court. But eventually they come out of themselves and out their shell, and before you know it, you've got a really good coach, because they're immersed and assimilated into our whole program of how to generate enthusiasm with their own natural gifts, and whether that's talking or playing, walking the walk or talking the talk, there's a place for everybody if you're prepared to want to give. So that in itself was my future planning. So when things have gone wrong, with the whole kind of thing, my junior coaches that were on my program that now got their own business. So Sam Dunbabin from Fireball Beach Volleyball, he's like, what can I do to help? Can I take over staff? Let me know if I need to do anything for you, and like you say, just the right people reaching out to sort of support you through tough times is, that's a testament to, like I said, the volleyball bank, the building and the banking of good deeds towards the sport, really. So many people have given so much to me as a player and as a coach over my time that I feel like I could give for the rest of my life, and it would never be enough for what I've received. So I think that kind of whole approach to sharing on the court.
So what I heard earlier was that, first of all, for anybody who is out there and they're like, well, it's not popular where I am. Whatever I'm doing, my niche sport is not popular where I am. For me, I'd
give a good old fashioned bollocks to that.
Right?
Sorry,
I moved to the most popular volleyball place probably in the world, here in Rio, and I said, all right, I'm going to go where it's the thickest, and we survived in the most competitive volleyball environment, period, which is kind of cool. But at the same time, when I ran my first volleyball vacation, I said, I'm from New York. I think that everybody wants to come to New York at some point. And I also think that some of those people who want to come to New York want to play beach volleyball. And so maybe they want to see the behind the scenes look, like how I played beach volleyball in New York City, because you always get that, beach volleyball in New York City. What are you talking about? So we took them to Central Park. We took them to the Brooklyn Bridge Park. We took them to Rockaway and Long Beach, where there are thousands of players playing every weeknight. And we took them to Broadway shows, a New York Mets game. We were going to go to a football game. So we did all of this very, very, very New York stuff. And I said, it's funny that, I did that for one try and it worked. I never repeated it. But it was in a place where most people don't think about your sport. So it's just about feeding that bank, like you're saying, of, if it's not existent in your area, or you are so passionate about beach volleyball and you live in Nebraska, a landlocked place, that's okay. Just start feeding everybody's passion and it'll come. And then that bank will come back to you. And then you can start building your company without customers necessarily existing out there. You can also build your customers at the same time that you're building your business.
Build it and they will come, 100%. It's, again, they're so these things are said because it's so true. You know, they will build it and they will come. And literally, it's that's the magic of your passion. And I wish I'd come on your camp to New York. How have you been with all the kind of ups and downs of like your mental health and with your business? You know, you must have been quite worried in the beginning and stuff.
Oh man. Well, let's have a COVID talk. For us, it was funny that you said talking about the bank and that people were supporting you and bringing it back, because when COVID did hit, we were in an argument with our city of how much we were doing for the city.
Yeah.
And they had this permit program that would have only let us coach 4 hours per week. And it's like, excuse me, you want me to run a business in 4 hours per week? That doesn't make any sense. And so we were having like big time discussions with them and the city council meeting. And that happened about 3 weeks before COVID happened. And then we were like, okay, you know what, discussion's over. The world's in an emergency. City council, go take care of things, because this is bigger than just like playing volleyball on a beach. And when that happened, everybody immediately asked for refunds on everything that they had. You know, they'd taken like 5 classes of a 20 pack. They had bought a 10 pack of private lessons, and they had done, you know, 2 of them. And so they're all asking for his money back. And I took that money and I applied it already, like down the road to the next bills, the next paying coaches. And maybe this was a dumb move. Like if some other business or CEO were to look at me, they'd be like, that's ridiculous. Like, you've already been paid. It's future work to be promised, and you're just going to open up again, and then they're going to have to rebuy it. Like, it doesn't make sense for you to give refunds. Maybe they would have said that, but I gave everybody complete full refunds, and our bank account went well below 0 in one day, and the bank shut us off, and they're like, what's happening? And so we were hard in the red. And we had a couple of people who sort of recognized what was happening, like a month, 6 weeks down the road. And I got a few literal like cash gifts from people who said, I know that this is probably a tough time. Do what you need to do with this money, and consider it as a down payment for the next 10 years of my business. Like, you know, I'm nice. Supporting you. So you build that goodwill when you do it the right way. We eventually crawled back. And now we're at a point where I've got some type of cushion, but I'm basically, once all the bills are done for taxes, after our most successful year, we'll be like at 0, which is crazy. But I've got so much confidence in the next year coming around. And I know that it's like going to keep coming each month, and we're going to keep building processes and repeating what has done well. So I've got a lot of confidence in next year. But when some of the coaches who you hire for just a short amount of time, or they run your classes, they think about all of the income you get. This person's paying this person's paying this. And, you know, and then I'm only getting blah, blah, blah. How much are you making? Like, until you run a real business, you have 0 idea how much expense comes with every new thing you do. Every new project has a brand new set of expenses, and you get to keep such a small amount of that. So, you know, back to the COVID and what happened. I never would have pulled myself completely out of coaching in person, even though I knew that our goal was to put out as much information and help as many players as I can. I was like, if I coach on YouTube, I can be coaching 10,000 people in a day. If I coach in person, I can coach like 8 people in a day, you know, maybe a couple more, 16, 30, something like that. Yeah. But I never would have said, okay, well, I'll give somebody else $75 today to go coach for a few hours, and I'll work for free, hoping that my online investments pay off. I never would have done that. And I was trying to, but it was always that like, you know what, I really need that $75 now. So
Yeah.
what COVID did was it mandated me to sit and do the computer work and film and video and figure out other ways. So I took every single volleyball match in practice that I had ever recorded, and I was like, let's put it on YouTube. Let's put it on YouTube. Even if I don't know what it's going to be shaped like, let's start getting it out there. And our audience multiplied by 6 or 7 in 1 year. You know, we developed a huge audience. And now, after a year of not playing volleyball, me and Brandon go to a tournament, or we end up on a beach volleyball court somewhere, and someone recognizes us. At every single sand volleyball court there is, somebody's like, oh, Bitter Beach, you know, without me even like wearing like any of the logos or anything. So it was COVID was probably the most important, influential, and growth time that ever could have happened for our company.
Yeah. Well, that you can see that as a testament that you've really sort of thrown yourself into. And I think what's really important is the content it's real. I think what you do is so much jumping out at me. When we're in our Facebook chat, so in the group, you know, there's always somebody asking a question, and then sometimes it gets really like, so many comments, I'll try this, try that, you know, this is this is that. And then you come up with a video based on that chat, and you're just responding really well to what people's needs are within their current climate or whatever they've got in their toolbox. What do they need next? You know, how do they problem solve it, whether it's a physical or mental thing? You know, you're bringing that to the sport, and I think we just needed that. And I think if I could have told my younger self is record more, but we just, you know, I've got my first little camera, and it was like a little square little thing that somebody gave me to sort of video on the web, and you know, trying to get that stuff. And I just think how difficult it was. Now there's no excuse. So with athletes, or even, you know, there's no excuse to not get your a 20 euro tripod and put your phone on it and record yourself at practice, and then come back and have a look at it, and while you're just having your dinner, and have a TV dinner and watch yourself, you know, as opposed to anybody else playing and anybody else doing something, you know, whatever, you know, you can at the flick of a switch you can watch yourself, you know. And that was definitely one of the best ways in which I then apply, you know, all the stuff that I'd learned into applying it, because I use my, you know, like through my own doing, listening, and my vision, you know.
So I have a short story about exactly that, and then I'll tie it back into business. But we had there's somebody who has become one of my best friends. He signed up for our online coaching, and I said, well, you have to record your games. You have to record what you're doing, because he had seen me do one lesson with somebody else online, and he showed up for like 10 of these video lessons, and he was recording it. And then his stuff, like, you know, 4 or 5 of his lessons were on YouTube. And in Salt Lake City, in this big, like this 5-court indoor facility, within the next 4 months, there were 5 cameras on every court. Like every single player then you couldn't start your match without recording yourself. And he said, like, at the end of my like 7 or 8 months in Salt Lake City, he was like, Mark, like, you did this. You see all those cameras? That never happened in this city. There were no cameras before you arrived and before people saw our videos. And now, like, everybody is recording themselves. So I was super proud of that facility. But then if you take that from sport and you say, man, I wish I had recorded more so that I could post more, so I could share more, but also so that you can learn your own technique and what you did. You know, when I do a skill now, or when I'm like building a clinic or a camp, I put double the time into building it, because I do what I have to do. And then I write down what I did and when I did it. And I just drop that into an Excel sheet. And now the next time I have that, I have a very easy to follow to-do list. And I can choose to either check those off one at a time, or I could say, here you go, Joe. Here you go, Dave. Here you go, Brandon. Here's how we build a clinic. And it's just this checklist, you know. And if you don't record it when you're doing it, or if you don't keep your like journals for yourself, all of this stuff, then you have to start from scratch every single time. And I did that for way too long.
Yeah,
way too
that's the first thing that when people turn up at a camp, I'm like, I'm not as hardcore in terms of recording, and that's the one thing that I keep wishing I was better at, but I keep saying to them, you've got a phone, you can get a tripod, here's where you get it from. But also the journal, I'm kind of really like, write it down, and when you get that one person that's like meticulously listening and writing notes and everything else, and then you see them a year later and they're just like, wow, I don't recognize you as a player, but that they put the time in, and case in point, we've been on with national team camps, and we say, like, we've got 20 athletes, and we say you've got to write a journal. Day 3, we'll say, right, well, let's have a spot check on these journals, because it's part of the commitment that they have to do. And then we sort of go, okay, who do we think hasn't done it? And pretty much we can spot on, as a group of national team coaches, we could literally call who hasn't been writing their journal and who has. And that we did that one time at a camp, and we just laughed at the fact that it's such a simple process, but if you write and journal and record stuff, and it's it just helps, it's so simple. So why wouldn't you? Yeah.
And I think most of us know that, like, as athletes, most of us know this. Like, yes, it was important at some point to go and write down and to record yourself and see yourself playing, and have a mirror in your gym so that you could see your own technique. But for whatever reason, I think a lot of us, maybe I'm unique, but I think a lot of us forget to do that when it comes time for your business. Like, remember to keep your stats, the important statistics that lead to wins, not I won. What was my hitting percentage? What was my hitting percentage in inside out, and then my transition hitting percentage? How many digs did I get? Like, all of these stats that you have to keep in your sport that lead to a win. That's the same thing that somebody who's running a business needs to take, and you need to figure out what stats for you are most important to getting your big, like, business or company wins. And then you need to track them, you need to write them down, and then you need to write the process down of how it led to that. And we do that in sport, I think, like, naturally, if we've been playing sports longer, but we just kind of forget, or we don't do that when it comes time to running a company.
No, absolutely. And I think, it's the cycles also of your beach volleyball business. I don't know about you, that sometimes you're trying to add in more camps, add in more training, figuring out how to, also I'm sure you're the same, trying to attend events yourself, because you do it because you still want to play, you want to perform for as long as you can at the highest level. And that's important too. And I felt that was one of my biggest things. Is like, one, I wanted to be a hurdle forever for all the kids that I was teaching, like, at what age did they beat me, like, how old could I be before they got their scalp over me, kind of thing. But also, that a lot of people say, well, you would have been a better coach if you'd given up playing. Well, actually, no, I've become a better coach because I'm playing, because I figure out, actually, I can do more funky stuff and get the ball over as I get older and I play than I ever do. So I can do stuff with my feet, with my elbows, I do a flipper now, like a hip flipper. Oh, that I just, as an aside, that, the sky ball that came from Cancun with Phil and Nick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where they cross platform.
Yes, exactly. And then he hit it over with a back flipper, but it went out, didn't it? And had it gone in, it would have been legal and they would have won the point. But I've been practicing that back flipper, because I play with, like, a group of, like, old, like, 50, 60, 70-year-old German guys that could barely play, but they figured out how to play, and they use all sorts of funky stuff. So now I've actually developed a lot more tools in my own box playing at 53, because I can't move like it is, so I have to use a different part of my body, but something can get near it. So how do my feet work, or how do my knees work, or how does my outside of my elbow work?
Right.
It's loving that as a person, kind of. And also, I guess, with your camps, one of your questions to me in your email ahead of this was, what does your client base look like? Well, as I've got older, my client base has changed, but it also still very looks like young kids wanting to be internationals, young kids that just absolutely have got a passion for it, with their parents that like it and want to come along anyway, right through to your international players that are, still learning and still out there. So that diversity is really helpful. 100%. Like, I haven't got a complete niche market. I've always wanted to go down that route, but we're having I would have liked to have coached a national team program, would have liked to have had like solid money coming in for a 4-year contract, and never had to kind of do what we've done. But there wasn't that moment in time where I felt that it was the right time for me, particularly because I loved my family life, and I the place where I lived and how we traveled as a unit, as a family. And that's quite a big thing. It's a big commitment for any international coach, what they do. Like someone like Kurt Pittman, for example, he was over in the UK, then he joined the Australian program, and the success that they had in Tokyo, it's all credit to him. But the sacrifices are quite tough, and if you can move your family, then it's been great, but it's not always so straightforward. And so those sacrifices, or things that you don't achieve, come because you do other things, or you don't put yourself out there because you want to make another aspect of your. So I guess for any developing person starting in their business, it's the priorities and the money coming in, isn't it? It's always there's a balance, and how do you offset those, and what's the important focus, and who are you as a person, which will matter to you as well at the end of the day. When you look back, your credibility and your authenticness into your business, I think those are always a big, huge, like being authentic and being trustworthy and honest, huge kind of factors that have impacted upon why I do what I do, and how I want to spend time helping people kind of play the sport, because it's people are vulnerable when they come to you to learn. So helping them get through, overcome things to learn is also kind of really the joyous part of the job.
You treat them how you would want to be treated. That's that. When I go to a company and something doesn't happen, or I can't get it, like when the planes and all the airports shut down, and I was like, okay, give me the refund for my flight, and they said no, I was like, excuse me? You're not able to provide a dated service, like you should be giving me a refund. And I felt so much of that heat because I had a bucket list item. Me and my wife, we were going to, with 2 of our best friends, we were going to Dublin for St. Patrick's Day. And St. Patrick's Day is my favorite holiday, like by far my favorite holiday. So this is absolute bucket list, Dublin, Ireland. And that got canceled during COVID. And I was so like distraught and hurt that they wouldn't give me the refund for the flight. And I, did the 100% 180. I was like, in my business, I always give a refund, or blah, blah, blah. And I did, perhaps to my financial detriment, but then the way people look at you, it's interesting. They don't necessarily look at you like, what a good guy, he did the right thing. But if you don't give them the refund when you're in trouble or when something doesn't happen, then you're evil. So they don't look at you as generous and kind when you give the refund. But if you don't give a refund when something like that happens, they look at you as completely evil, and they hate you, and they'll slam you. And that's a dangerous place to be. And I don't like that. I'm okay with some people not liking me, but if people call me like a cheat or something like that, then I have a problem with having that reputation. So I've never put myself into it.
Yeah, I remember one time running a tournament, like we ran a King and Queen of the Beach, and this is before spreadsheets. And so we had, say 20 courts. And they'd all play. The first day they play individually, and then the second day they play with their partner. So I had to seed them based on their finishes from the first day. So say they finished, in the, I don't know, whatever, 50th and 27th, that would give me, the 77th number. And then I basically grade them all, put them together. So given in mind that the event finishes, it's a sort of event finished at 7 or 8 o'clock, you're coming off the beach, you put all those things, you're literally writing it all out by hand, and then you put them into pools and the divisions based on where their finishes were. And it's a complicated business, and you had a little panel of wild cards. Well, maybe that was a little bit wrong, but then the next day, I put somebody in a division that they didn't like, and they called me a cheat, and they said, I have favoritism. And I was like, oh my goodness, I've been up so like 5 or 6 hours of these sheets all night. And those are the tough things, when people don't see the endeavor that goes behind something to try and make it as transparent. And one other big thing is, we have 240 people come to our tournament, and we run over a long stretch. and we can't always kind of get people in the same way because it's a fundraiser for our club, so we try and not employ too many people and ask the endeavor of the people there. And you ask out 240 people how many have run a tournament, and like 3 or 4 people might put their hand up. And I think it's just the fact that there's a lot of people that haven't, maybe we just don't ask and we just do too much. So that's also a bit, I think, in business, and bringing it back to those sort of key things are, delegate. Don't feel like you're indispensable. What you do isn't amazing. You're just practical at what you do, and you see a need and you fulfill it and you get it done. So teaching people to do that and fulfill their tasks, then that's so there you can delegate, because you show people how to, from start to finish, this is what you need to do, and very much like you were saying, making those lists.
Love that you said, don't treat yourself like you're indispensable. Whatever you did, somebody else can do it. So you're able to hand it off. And if you want to grow, you have to be able to hand some of these things off. Like if you learned how to work your registration software, somebody else can also learn that. You don't need to be doing it. So you have to, in your business, you are indispensable, but don't treat yourself as indispensable with the tasks and the doing and where you have to be and what you have to do. Like even up to like payroll and paying people. Like, no, it doesn't need to be you doing that. You can eventually hand that off. And the faster you do, the faster you grow. You just have to make sure that you've built enough of a base. So that, when you take that like little financial slowdown to pay somebody else, you have to realize that that's not to free you, that's to free you for more work, or for the next level of work, so that you can do that.
100%. A good bookkeeper, a good accountant, a great through the time that I was growing, because obviously I wasn't in the beginning, we used to call them dappers, which were like Denise Austin personal assistants, but they'd be all the kind of the school kids that became college kids that were looking for work experience, I can't think what you call it, like in the States, an intern kind of thing.
Yeah.
I'd have continual interns. Denise, can I come and work with you? And people would come and sit with me in my office, and they'd help me with whatever the to-do list required, and they were just super flexible, and they learned a lot just by being there. And people ask, I get references pretty much once a week from all the people, they've applying for a job, can you give me a reference, because they've come and worked with me. And I'm like, just write a really good letter about yourself, let me read it, I'll add a little bit more, and I'll send it off from me, because I trust you to write, and I usually add more, but it just helps in that. But that is really nice, when people, you see people achieving, not just in volleyball, but they're teachers, they're working in mostly in an education sector, but that they're out there kind of doing the stuff that they came to you to learn, and there they are delivering when they're much older now. And that's a testament to the successes that you have from teaching people to be how to be good at and effective at what they deliver. And that is, and it does boil down to having a passion for wanting others to do well in the thing that you know about.
It does. Yeah, I agree. Well, are you ready to do a little deep dive into the business side of what you do?
Yeah, sure. Fire away.
Okay. So do you want to talk about one individual camp, or do you want to talk about your full year?
Oh God, it's a really tricky one at the moment, because I've gone from having, I was in Tenerife for 2.5 months from 2019 to 2020, and we left there when that hotel got closed in Tenerife. I don't know if you heard about it. You remember?
Yeah,
so
we were on the phone during that. We were messaging each other. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was a couple of miles down the road, and wasn't really thinking too much about it. Flew back to Portugal. We're looking for our land search, and then it just completely changed. And so the following winter, the council asked me if I was coming back, and I said, well, no, everything's still really unsettled. This year I said, can I come back? And they said no. So they wrote to me, and they said, we're not allowing any, but I know full well that last winter there were 12 volleyball nets set up by loads of different people, none of them licensed, none of them having registered with the coasters for the Tenerife Islands, not with the local cameras, you know, the local councils. They haven't got their business insurances, all their coaches for each named coach that's delivering on your camp. You know, they haven't got their public liability, but they're setting it up and they're doing their thing on the beach. And so you kind of like go, yeah, but I've done it for 20 years there, you know.
Right.
So that's been really tough. And again, that was something that I wanted to transition out of slowly. So then I was kind of like, that came as quite a shock. So I'm looking at doing small camps in Gran Canaria, and this is a COVID talk. I'm not going to go there and deliver now because of things changing, but I advertised it to say, look, things can change. I'll put in substitute coaches. We'll confirm once we've got the threshold of people booked, you know. So I put a lot of caveats into making sure that people, their expectations to get there are less, you know. Does that make sense? And if it happens, fab, you know, but let's be more cautious than I ever have been. But that's been frustrating because I wasn't quite ready to transition out so fast out of Tenerife. And it's such a shame because of the years that I've been there, I was there when, you know, there were only a few courts on the beach, and Javi Bosma was there, you know, and he was head of, you know, and just those kind of greats of Spain that have got the medals, that was you know, I got to watch them up close and personal, and we spent a lot of time, you know, I would be serving at the Spanish Mail War. Anyway, I digress in the fact that I've put so much energy into that island, you know, and brought so many people to it, and it's grown since I first went. Because when we first went, there were very few people there. There was like one Mexican and 4 Norwegians, you know, whereas now every single person from the whole of Europe goes to Tenerife and spends time there, you know. And we've promoted that, you know. We brought plane loads of people to that island for the last 20 years, so they continue to be full and have a unique attraction and a quite, you know, good people. We're not bringing people that are getting drunk and, you know, trashing the place. They might get drunk, but they don't trash the place, and they're not just there for the drink.
We take care of our beach.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's take care of their beach.
Yeah. So just to sort of say that in terms of my business model, the retreat beach volleyball that I'm doing here is still in development because I've had to kind of, and where I go and how I run camps because of COVID and the regulations is also tough. So sitting still is now probably more important in Portugal, but with the comings and goings of the regulations, I'm just kind of like, right now, I'm happy to live with less. So I don't need to work hard right now. And I'm really happy about that. Like, I'm super happy about that. And that's also, I think, it's really important for me and my family and my husband, and just for everybody's well-being, that there's not much going on. And it's almost like a bit of an early retirement phase because, you know, we want to spend more time with our younger daughter because we're older parents. So in that respect, it's perfect, but it might not seem perfect to others. But actually having that, you know, it's not what you would need to do at this point in age in your young marriage, young relationship, whatever, you know, and I wouldn't have been the same. But right now it's perfect for me. And I guess telling people to have that. So, and tying something else in, you said about what to do in succession planning. Have you bought your own piece of land, Mark?
No.
Okay,
but it's something that I've been considering for the last 3 months.
Good.
In terms of like, where can we set up? There's a lot of places you can set up, and there's so much control you have once you have that land. You don't, you know, you might have your taxes, you might have your real estate things, but the ability to not control the area that you have, or, you know, when a city gives a certain permit away, or they decide to go with another vendor, and it's just, man, that's brutal. But you don't have to. And because I just talked with somebody who is trying to find her own thing, and she has built an empire with no gym, no facility. She went to this, you know, she found a plot of land, or a plot of sand, and she went to the city and she said, hey, here's my business proposal. I'm going to give you 20%. So long as you make sure that the beach is clean, you know, just send a machine down there like twice a month. and I will run these classes and I'll give you X percentage. And she did this in a number of places in a number of cities, and she's crushed it. You know, she's absolutely crushed it. Built the 7th largest volleyball organization in the U.S., which is considerable.
That's really cool.
But at the same time, she's looking for a home right now. She's looking for someplace where she 100% controls. And we are also in that, and that's why we're looking heavily in Florida. Because it's, you know, as my beach volleyball playing career starts taking a backseat, I want to be prepared with, well, I don't have to be in California. I don't have to be paying extra taxes. I don't have to be at the will of politicians and city councils who make the decisions. Like I can build my own thing. So no, I mean, I completely agree. Like I've used public and open spaces, but having now gone into this place, and when we got locked into our field at the beginning of lockdown, and we said, well, we're going to build a beach volleyball court on a piece of field, and you know, like, are we crazy spending our well-saved money to do something like that? But at the same time, we didn't know how long we'd be locked in, and I'd go crazy without having a field, you know, because I still want to play. And, you know, as long as it's got me and my husband, we can play volleys all day long, you know, and a couple of other people, and we've got a game, and we don't need to break any rules or regulations with how many people can get together, you know. So in that respect, I think it was a really prudent thing to have done, even though it was kind of scary, very, very scary, sort of, you know, like anybody doing something completely different at the start of it. But I guess for you guys, I guess as you get older, things like when's the best time to plant a tree is like 30 years ago. So I wish I'd had this land 30 years ago when we first drove through here in the 1990s. When's the best time to plant a tree 30 years ago?
You know, like I wish that I'd had this piece of land or somewhere similar. And, you know, we came through the Portugal surfing in 1990s, the early 90s, and we loved it, fell in love with it. But it took us until 2019 to come back and look for land. And it's like, damn it, you know, like, why did we take so long? So note to younger beach volleyball players, if you see a piece of land, or even if it's not quite where you think you might be, I reckon it's always a bit of a punt if you're not doing the whole house thing and you haven't got the house thing. I mean, because where you live, the houses, I was thinking about this when you said, if you could go into partnership with somebody, like instantly I was like Eric Fenoy, like, you know, his real estate there. If he could just rent me a house cheap and send all the best kids and the best training camp and the best hostel place for all the young kids to go and live, you know, like I'd do business like happily with him. And you know what I mean? Just somebody, he's got a really great skill set in terms of where he's selling houses and stuff, and also his beach volleyball stuff. It's amazing. You know,
I can't wait to talk to him. That's gonna be fun. He's high on my list. But we do have to get back to.
Oh yeah, go on then.
Okay, so then do you want to talk about 2 years ago, or like if you were to start a camp today, like if regulations were free and easy, like what it would look like right now, or what it looked like just before COVID?
Yeah, I mean, I'm struggling with the regulations and all that kind of stuff, you know,
like
okay, you know.
So then, let's talk about one single camp, right? So
I guess Tenerife, finding the right sort of place to go regularly, consistently. Tenerife would definitely be the place to be. But what's so heartbreaking is that I'm going to be announcing that I'm not doing stuff. You know, hang on, let me just think a second. I think, you know, like we started the conversation where you live and like building it from where if I was going to do anything anywhere, it's where I'm based. So the fact that I can't say exactly what I'm doing here because I've met with the sports council here, but I'm, you know, like the regulations here are a little bit like, again, problematic. So I'm kind of in negotiation kind of thing. And I don't want to do too much because things change so fast that the energies to do anything are like I say, I'm more happy to be family, but I guess the advice would be, so when we drill back down into it, would be build it where you really want to be. And wherever you are, then people will come, you know, for sure.
Okay.
So that's really about my Croyd camps, really, I guess, which we did sort of touch on earlier. So
if you ran, let's say we were in 2018, right? And you want to run a camp, right? One camp. How many spots do you have? And what are you charging? So what are you going to be able to bring in for that 1 week?
Usually I would look at taking in probably about anything from £1,000 to £2,000 for an active working week where I've traveled to, say, Israel or Iceland. In 1 year, I went and did beach volleyball camps in both of those countries, so amazing stuff. But then you've got to factor in, the energy. It's not so much the delivery days, it's the energy to get there, but it's also when you've traveled and you come back, the recovery days that you need to pick up your pieces. So you might only go for 2.5 days, 3 days, but you've got a huge lead in and lead out time. So but I really worked really hard ahead of my daughter going to America, because I knew that I'd be supporting her. It's a big financial outlay potentially coming up, so I really put my foot to the floor. And so I basically, I had so many customers coming to Tenerife, where I had a massive customer base. I was getting people coming from Russia, from Iceland, from Finland, from Brazil, from Guatemala.
Were you running 1 week at a time, or were you constantly running?
Oh, I was there for 8 weeks or 2.5 months, depending on which season it was. And we would have 24 people each week with a weekend break, so we'd have, and we'd be there for 4 to 6 weeks. And sometimes we'd had 24, and then sometimes the coaches would all go home and I'd go down to 8, so smaller camps towards the end of it. So that became quite a great business model in terms of being in another country, another place. I mean, this is post-Brexit as well, because obviously that the amount of times, that you can be in Europe is different now. But so being based somewhere so that people will find you was also good. And also being based so that coaches will want to come and work with you. So you get better assistant coaches, you get more support staff that are like putting in their internship and their journey time, wherever. When I was at home in the UK and traveling and based from there, I could go for weekends and come back, but that would be like a week's work where you'd have to really nail it and make sure that you got people booked in. You're not going to go all the way to Iceland and not make money. It wasn't about just seeing a place.
How much do they have to pay to come to your training at this public beach, which you have the permits for?
Yeah. Roughly, I think the last time we ran was £240 a head, and they just paid for their training. They didn't pay for their hotel, their shuttles, any food. It was just literally the coaching that they were paying for. And I preferred that, because then if people wanted to stay in a youth hostel, they could do. If people wanted to stay in a 5-star hotel, they could do. There was lots of opportunities. So I felt that was quite inclusive. And it was reasonably low. My expectations were such. I wasn't out to make, I could have charged more, because another friend of mine, Jorge, who came, he runs Sunset Beach volleyball camps. He did a whole spreadsheet before he started his business of what people were charging, how much they charged, was it inclusive? And he said, I came in the lower middle ground, but the lower middle ground. So that's fine for me, because it wasn't just about money. And also my living expenses are much cheaper, because I've always lived in smaller spaces, or camper vans, or chalets as opposed to big houses. So my costs are lower, so I don't have to make as much in that respect.
Sure. Okay. So £240 per person, and that gets them one practice every day, 6 hours a day.
Two scheduled practices. So they come from 9 till 10:30. Then we'd have a long coffee break, half an hour, and then they'd come back from so that'd be 11 until 1, or more or less. So from 9 to 1, they had a coach, a trainer, people shouting at them for the whole period of time, people supporting them for the whole period of time, with 2 sessions. And then we'd have, sometimes it wouldn't be scheduled lunches, but people go off, do their lunch break and stuff. And then from about 3:30, the nets, we'd all gravitate back to the nets and have, it could be competitions, it could be open gameplay, just pick up games, you name it, there would be some kind of competition. And for 5 days of the week, we would do that, except one afternoon we would have like a camp competition where we do the best coach plays with the worst player, and then you just basically fold the camp in half and get the group dynamics in the mystery tournament kind of thing. So
how many coaches did you have for 24 players?
Oh, do you know what? I was really, and this is the blessing, is I would get a 3-bedroom apartment. I found a really good 3-bedroom apartment that you could sleep 8 coaches in, people on the sofas, everybody's just jumping in and out. And we both have a spreadsheet for who was coming and going whenever they could. So we would have 8 coaching plus myself, and my husband takes photographs as well. So 9 coaching staff
for 24
and 1 photographer.
People?
Yeah.
What?
And that was kind of really amazing because I could pay I could pay not most of them, but I would say a third of them. But they were the ones that if everybody else left, I knew that I would have enough to have 1 to 8 or, at minimum, maximum kind of thing, or minimum. But because of the nature of the fact they could get a free apartment in Tenerife for a month, and they could train every afternoon, they could play every afternoon. People were more than happy to come and be part of that setup and, share. So
you weren't necessarily paying them, but you were paying for their living there and saying like, hey, I got you all a crash pad and we just need you to coach the people who need to be coached. And then in that way, they're also, probably because they're from the colder areas of Europe, I'm guessing, or areas where they can't find other players. So this is like the one hub where they know, okay, there's 7 other dudes going to be there. All right. And we can battle against each other every day after some coaching. Cool.
100%. And I was a lead coach. I would pay 2 other lead coaches, and then all the kind of other support people. Some of them I would pay their flights because they'd be coming more consistently. Some of them I'd give them more. And thinking about it now, it was generally for the more experienced trainers, it would be their flights, their food stipend for every week, and their accommodation. So at the end of it, they didn't go back, they didn't go forwards, but they didn't go backwards, and they'd had 4 to 6 weeks in the sun in Tenerife. And literally the apartment that we had was 20 meters from the beach, so that they had to go and get coffee in the break. They could go to their own pad, they didn't have to be spending money to get a break. You know what I mean? There was all those little things that help towards the kind of contribution of their time. And over time, we've had loads of different players and athletes and people coming and learning from all sorts of countries, wanting to just jump in and, could I come and help assist? Because they come as a player, they coach a little bit back home, then they go, I want to learn I want to experience what it is you're doing, how you do it, want to learn from the way you deliver. And so people would always be wanting to come and help. So I was really lucky like that. And they knew that it was an open door because they could see, the hospitality that I was extending to a lot of coaches, because we had a lot of people there helping us, and they loved that. So they wanted to be part of that as a player as well.
Oh, okay. So I just did some math on the side here. And if you had 24 people for 8 weeks, charging £240, so you're bringing in about 46,000 in 8 weeks.
Yeah, something like that.
Before all your expenses.
Yeah, we wouldn't have had the last, I would say we probably have 4 weeks maximum of the 24, and then 4 weeks where I'd have 8, because 8 weeks of 24 would have been too intense. So thinking about it, it's more like 4 full weeks, 4 big weeks, 4 little weeks, which I think was the last model before we left Tenerife. And that worked really well, because then me and Nick had more quiet time. Layla had more time to go back to the family. It wasn't so intense that you're managing 24 people.
I gotcha. Yeah. When we have 40, 50, and 60 person camps, I am so exhausted at the end of those camps because I am on nonstop. Like I wake up at 6:45, and as soon as a camper sees me, I have to, hi, how are you? How's everything? Like I turn on the energy, and it doesn't stop until like way after dinner at night. No. And then you're doing that for 1 week, and then 2 weeks in a row is brutal on me. And I could not imagine doing that for 8 weeks in a row.
Yeah.
That would be crazy.
It's you can't turn it on, your tap, it's you, isn't it? Like it's not, it's like I say, it's authentically you, because just every time I every time I go to work, I'm going to the beach. So like, fuck. Yay. That childish giggle never goes, you know, like, oh my God, I go to the beach to work. How fun's that?
Yeah.
So I can't, you know, you never sort of switch that off. And but it's unless you learn to manage those energies, and it flows through you so well. I remember talking to a massage person, you know, and how physical their job was, and they just turned around and said, you know, it's not about being really physical, it's about making sure that you're using your energies in the right way, and that, you know, you can absolutely bust your people on the bench and get them better and really like work really hard, but making sure that you're still in one piece and you're not broken at the end of it became a skill. And I think that also then becomes remembering you're not invincible, trusting the nature and the personality of all the people, you know, like you say, you successfully vetted all these people because they've come to you because you're delivering a certain like style of camp. You know, it wasn't about getting drunk, it wasn't about kind of just looking good and voguing on the court. It was really about, you know, your journey to becoming a better beach volleyball player, and that we trust that, and we're going to have fun with you and make sure that you feel confident with that. So managing the energies. Go on, sorry.
So this is why it's so key for you to have those groups that book themselves, because if you run a smaller camp, and you know, we've run into it where we'll have like 17 or 18 people, and we have 3 complete beginners, 3 people who are at an open level, and a bunch of randoms in between that might be girls, it might be guys. So then you, like, in actuality, you need, you know, for these 17 people, you might need 6 coaches, which is like insane. And the way that you're structuring it is people have to organize themselves, then they come to you. And that's why it's so important.
There's two models. So in Tenerife, towards the end of it, I would put advanced women's, advanced men's week, a mixed week, what have you. And by the time I've been doing it for 20 years, I knew that people knew what that level was. Okay. And that if somebody came to me completely out of the blue, I basically asked for a reference just to sort of check, you know, because, you know, you shoot yourself in your foot, somebody signs up, you're thinking, great, you don't do your double check, and then they come. And like you said, I had 2 guys turned up, brilliant people, really lovely, successful, lovely clients, and always happy to see them, but not at the level they signed up for. So in that week that they'd signed up for, they took up 2 spaces. Luckily I had 6 guys and them, but my husband and any Joe Blogg stranger had to come, and we had to run a separate net for them when it was only supposed to be 1 that week because of not having that in place. So that was one model that I'd worked out the levels that you advertise and bringing people in. But also I put an open weekend, open to a group booking, and just put dates where I'm free. And I think that really worked really well. So I haven't got anything on, I'm not playing, I'm not going anywhere. But if you want me to come to you and you want to do something this weekend, and you've got a group of you that are really happy to go together, and those are some of my best places, because that's when you know, they just happy that they know each other anyway. So there's not, like I said, there's not going to be the new people dynamics bouncing off of each other in the wrong way that you've got to manage kind of that kind of friction. There was less of that, shall we say, for sure.
Well, how are you announcing this? So when people, you know, you've got a name now, and people are probably searching your site looking for open weeks, but is there any way that you intentionally fill the classes? Do you post on a Facebook group, your Facebook group? Do you send out emails? Is it just on your website? Do you ever put out ads?
Yeah, all of the above. Definitely tick, for sure. And MailChimp became a great kind of tool that everyone kind of uses. And
MailChimp is an email CRM, right? So that people, when people open an email, you know how many of them opened it, how many clicked on it, how many people are treating you as spam.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and also it's just a great way to, you know, make sure that you always keep your central database of your clients, and you've got that kind of, and that's on the back end of my website. And I'm, you know, thankful that I've got the loyalty over time. You've got those thousands of customers.
Mm.
So and they just spread the word, which has been amazing. Facebook groups, when that started, like the idea that you would have 5,000 people that you knew that you would have X thousand people in a group, was kind of inconceivable really, but it's definitely so. And I do most of the platforms. I think Facebook for my era and generation is probably more where I was at, and obviously Instagram is there as well. But keeping up with whatever, if you can't beat them, join them. I've always tried to sort of keep up with what's coming next. So yeah, you tell me what platform I need to be communicating in, Mark. I'm sure you're way ahead of it.
For us, starting that Facebook group was massive. When we looked at especially now, we looked at our Google Analytics, and the majority of our people who get to our website come from Facebook. So it seemed like the path, and it's part science, part art and guessing, because it's even though the internet tracks everybody's every move, it's not really easy to completely understand them. And so you have to add forms and you have to add like questionnaires and see what happens. But when we add those, and when we so everybody who joins our online membership, they get coached twice a week and they get our entire library of courses, but they get to meet with our coach. And within the first 2 weeks, you get a meeting with our coaches. And one of the quick things we ask is, where'd you first hear about us? And it seems like everybody first got introduced to us on YouTube. They were like, they're either searching for volleyball advice or they were watching the McKibben channel. And then they started finding like our tutorials. Then they ended up somehow coming and joining our Facebook group, and then getting to our website again. Like we post a lot of blogs and advice and things, like 2 different courses on Facebook. And it's very easy to get people from Facebook to another site. But for Instagram, it is so hard to get people off of Instagram. They want to stay there. That's where they want to learn. That's where they want to do everything. So for us, it's near impossible for us to get people from Instagram to our website. So we've put in a lot of energy into Instagram, but now it's in a completely different way. We said, we're going to treat Instagram now like we treated YouTube. This is where we teach. We're going to meet people where they are. We're going to teach them. Then once we've taught them enough and they've gotten interested in our reels and our videos, our quick 1-minute hitters, then they will want to search us later. But we don't do all of these, click on this link now, click on this link now. We'll mention it, but it's not our focus. Our focus now has turned to, okay, this is just another place where we teach.
Is that if you do what you do and people want it, and they will, and people do want that, and that's where you are a true believer in your own product, in who you are and what you've got to sell. And I was thinking, one of the questions
that's the soundbite right there. If you do what you do, people will find you for doing it. Yep.
Yeah. And you said, who are your role models? Well, your mum, dad, whatever, they're always going to be, or, they always backed you, big brothers, sisters, of course. But it's who are the ones that kind of had confidence in yourself. And I think once you, as an athlete, once you know that if you've got ultimate confidence in yourself as an athlete or as a coach or as a developing business person, you've got enough right there. And then all the other stuff that we've talked about, it will fall into place because you're going in the right direction, which is in towards a place where you would want to work there. You would want to be having fun in that business. You will want to receive the product that business is selling. All of the things that you like when you were talking about New York, I'm like, I wish I had been there. That kind of thing.
We might have to do it again if New York ever gets significantly less strict. So.
Yeah,
we'll see. They're locking things down, so we'll see what happens there. So I have 2 questions, and then we gotta cut this. But obviously we didn't have enough time, so we're gonna have to have another nice long talk with each other. But for now, just the last 2 that I'm kind of going to ask is, number 1, what are your weaknesses, do you think, as a CEO? So along the path, like what do you wish you could have shored up? What do you wish that you could have fixed? Or what did you know that you needed because of who you are? What are your weaknesses as a CEO?
Definitely video technology. I wish I'd been really more proactive and just got more as it came along, just harvested everything I could do about what I did in my business and videoed myself delivering to all the places that I've been, because I would have captured so many more coaching moments that I could have used as sound bites as part of the book, of wherever I could have used them, they would have been good.
If there were one key person or role that you need or needed to hire to have your business hit the next level, would you say it would have been a videographer editor?
Yes, 100%. You know, somebody just documenting everything that I was doing, because I was so busy with the business of learning to teach that if you'd recorded me teaching, you know, then I would have then been able to demonstrate and show people the good things I did this day, the bad things, the things that got picked up on. So the whole mentoring of coaches to coach, having recorded myself through that journey, then I think I would have, that would definitely have been a major, just a self-growth, self-development aspect of what I would have achieved and left behind, you know, because at the end of the day, your videos are going to be there for a long time on YouTube beyond.
Okay, so that videographer would have been something big for you, and I'm sure like you and me both tell our players at camps and in their trainings, it is not too late to start recording.
No,
Put your phone in your sneaker, stand it up, push it against your flip flop, whatever you have to do, but start recording and writing it down. Because if you ever, and for you, like if you, when you want to pass your business on or just like hand it over or just sell a giant beach volleyball package so that beach volleyball training continues to happen, you're going to need that book of this is how you do everything. And that's why I'm also doing my Excel sheets every time now I do a task. I write down when I do it, for what, and like how long in advance it is of the event, so that I can just say, here, you want my giant book of how to run a beach volleyball vacation company or just a like in-person classes company. And I'm only doing this 7 years into it, but
yeah,
not too late.
No, not at all. And I admire your meticulousness over it. I think that's really important, you know, and with the advent, you're of a generation where you've grown up with access to it, and it's at your fingertips much more, and you're used to operating and all of that. Just run with it. Anything that helps kind of, you know, hold it all together and just keep it as a yeah, like a precious, it's like all a precious gift, all the things that we learn from everybody that we encounter, you know, like whatever job it is, whoever, you know, whichever job I've ever done, I've always tried to be really, really good at it. So whether I was a dishwasher, if I wasn't doing it well and I left food on the fork, or, you know, I'd want to be told, you know, or what have you, or, you know, whether it is being a sports organizer or a head cook, or I worked in a laundry, or I worked in a shoe factory, you know, like whatever job I could to do it. But I wanted to do it well, because every aspect of learning to do something effectively means that you're professional in the field of washing dishes. Well, that's good, because that application to detail in everything will cross over. And I know we can't be brilliant at everything, but we can give a bloody good shot at doing the good things well, you know. So now cooking or making gardens or whatever, I want to try and do it well, you know. It's
and
just
then you
that
help
approach
the next
to everything
advancement of whatever you want, the human race, coaches, better volleyball experiences, vacations, whatever you want. If you write it down and then somebody has that little textbook, they don't need to start from this discovery phase of zero. They can build on top of what you built. And then the next iteration, the next generation of volleyball coaches or players or business owners, they become better faster. But if nobody chooses to write stuff down and record it, everybody's got to start from zero all the time.
Yeah. And we were talking earlier, what's the best way to learn is fast. So if you can actually reflect and actually apply that reflection the very next second when you're a player in the reset button, or whether it's the very next day as a coach because something worked, it didn't, or wherever that deploying that fast, effective, new deployment of some kind of thing that you need to do, then that's the best way to do it. And that reflection process that we're going through here and trying to share that knowledge, that if you could give one good thing, it's just write it down and learn about it fast, for sure. And then one thing, when I first wrote my book, literally I wrote my book one long weekend in Portugal when I went to my first ever world tour. So I was in 95. Go on.
You wrote a book in one weekend?
Yeah, basically the book I wrote, How to Be the Better at Beach, is the Beach Volleyball Guide. I went to Espinho and I was in the qualifiers and I got knocked out. So then I was watching the main draw for the next 3 days. So I sat in the stands writing non-stop. Okay, what are the Brazilians doing? Are they doing a 4-step? Or is it a 3-step or is it a 4-step? Is that actually a step or is that not a step? Okay, that's it. Okay, the Americans are doing 3 steps. Okay, how are they tossing it? Is it tossing it with their right hand? Are they tossing it with their left hand? Okay, are they jump floating? Is the wind behind them? Isn't so all of this stuff. I just watched all the best players in the world doing what they were doing, and it was like a magical moment. Like people would just come and chat to me, and I remember being in the stands with like Angela Rock was there, Nancy Reno was there, Liz Masakaya, and like they all come and chat because that's what you did, and we were, and I just remember just writing because that was my first event. We were camping, and that to me was where where everything started in a way, because it taught me what I wanted to teach, what I wanted to learn, how do I learn it, how do I get all that information down. And by being at my first World Tour event, watching those guys play, I was like, I'm not going to miss a moment here. I want to see everything. I want to understand what is it they're doing and write it down so I don't forget. So when I went back to my own beach and had to train myself, trying to get to Sydney, I knew, okay, I'm going to self-feed 200 serves, but I'm going to try the tap left, right, left, or I'm just going to do the left, right, left, and I tried it all, and from what I'd seen. So yeah, that was a little nugget of my time, I guess.
That's incredible. A book in a weekend. If that's not inspiring, I don't know what is, but that's so awesome. Well done on that.
Well,
apply yourself for 2 days to one goal, people. Apply yourself.
It was
for
handwritten.
One goal.
It was handwritten in that time, but then by the time it got into spreadsheets and with the photographs that took it, that was 15 years later. So I can't say that. But that whole knowledge that I gathered by watching everybody's, which way do they set, how do they peel when they're calling this, which way do they go, like all the things that you discuss. I was just like, okay, they're blocking, where are they lining up, what are their timings, what are their callings, how do they look, where do they cover, all of that stuff was just mind-blowingly like, oh my god, look at these guys, look what they're doing, you've got to see this, you've got to understand what's happening here, and so it wrote it in 3 days and then took about 15 years to get to print, but it's good.
I'm sure if you had somebody who just had known how to write books and you're like, can you do anything with this? You could have been selling it for 15 more years.
Again, it was all on a shoestring as well, I think, like with a lot of things when we were first starting out. And like you say, we didn't have a base of customers. There weren't many places to play beach volleyball. So, but like I said, I've been used to living in that kind of shoestring life, but it's a good life, so I can't ever complain about the lack, because I love living on campsite or in camper vans or going to tournaments and in tents. It was all part of the journey,
and you're doing what you love.
Certainly am.
Denise, thank you so much for meeting with me, talking with me, and sharing all of your experience with a massive audience as my second podcast guest. We'll see if anyone listens to it, but either way, I know I learned a lot, and thank you so much. And guys, go check her out, beachvolleyballinc.com. You have a Facebook group as well, right? beachvolleyballinc.com, the Facebook group, and the guidebook to being a beach volleyball player. I believe you can get that on Amazon, if I'm not mistaken. Is that right?
Sadly, no. And that's another thing I would definitely do in my next book, is make it more online. This one you buy from Volleyball England, but they'll send it out to anywhere in the world. So you go on the Volleyball England website and it's in their shop.
Amazing. Amazing. Cool. Well, congratulations on all your success, and thank you for the chat. I really love talking to you.
Yeah, you too, Mark. Take care now.
All right. Bye-bye now.
Brilliant.